So let's talk about ashwagandha. You've probably seen this ancient herb popping up everywhere, right? It's being touted as the answer to all our modern stress. But is it really all it's cracked up to be? Or is it just hype?
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen bottles just like this in stores or online, and they are just loaded with promises. So the real question here is, if we actually put these claims under the microscope, what does the science have to say? Let's dig in and find out.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the promises right on the bottle. Then we'll get into what an adaptogen actually is. After that, we're diving deep into the evidence for your mind and your body. And to wrap it all up, we'll compare the science directly to the supplement.
All right, first things first, let's look at the claims. What exactly is this particular supplement from Flabia Ayurveda promising? Think of this as our checklist for the rest of this explainer.
Wow, okay, these claims are pretty bold, right? Better memory, less stress, a boost for male fertility, better performance in the gym, and even a stronger defense against chronic conditions. I mean, it kind of sounds like a miracle cure-all. So the big question is, do these claims actually hold up? But before we jump straight into the clinical trials and the hard data, I think it's important to understand where this herb even comes from. Let's connect its ancient roots to what we know from modern science. So in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, ashwagandha is called a rasayana, and that basically just means a rejuvenator. For literally thousands of years, it's been used to help people live longer, to sharpen the mind, and just bring a sense of balance back to the body.
So fast forward to today, and the modern scientific term for that ancient idea is adaptogen. An adaptogen is just a natural substance that helps your body, well, adapt. It helps you handle all kinds of stress and brings you back to a state of balance, or homeostasis. And you guessed it, ashwagandha is probably one of the most famous adaptogens on the planet.
Okay, now for the fun part. It's time to put those claims to the test. Let's start with the brain. Does this stuff really help with stress, anxiety, and making you smarter? Let's see what the actual evidence says.
Okay, so claim number 1 from the bottle. Helps reduce anxiety, stress, and depression. This is a huge one, right? This is probably the main reason it's gotten so popular lately. And, well, look at this. We see a real, measurable effect. Cortisol, that's our body's main stress hormone. And get this. Clinical trials have shown that ashwagandha can actually lower cortisol levels by as much as 28%. That is a huge drop, and it's a really strong biological sign that something is definitely happening here.
All right, so what about that next claim, the one about enhancing memory and cognitive function? Can this herb actually make you sharper, improve your memory, help you focus? Well, the research on this gets pretty specific.
Let's look at one study, for instance. It was a proper double-blind, placebo-controlled study, the gold standard for this kind of research. They took adults who had some mild cognitive issues and gave them 300 milligrams of ashwagandha root extract twice a day for 8 weeks. And the results? They saw significant gains in both immediate and general memory, executive function, and attention, all compared to the group that just got a placebo.
Okay, so the evidence for the mind looks pretty promising. But now, let's shift gears and look at the claims about the body. We're talking about male fertility and athletic performance here.
So here's another big one right from the label. Supports male fertility and boosts reproductive health. But can an herb really have an impact on something as complex as that? Let's see.
Well, the research is actually pretty compelling here. Studies looking at men with certain fertility issues found some really positive changes. We're talking an increase in sperm count, an increase in semen volume, better sperm motility, and even an improvement in testosterone levels. I mean, those are all absolutely critical factors when it comes to male fertility.
And that brings us to our last big claim. Does it actually help you in the gym? Can it promote muscle growth and improve athletic performance? Let's check it out.
And turns out the science seems to back this one up too. Scientific reviews have confirmed that ashwagandha can indeed improve muscle strength. And you can see here kind of how it works on a cellular level. Essentially, it helps reduce inflammation and what's called oxidative stress in your body. And that's a huge deal for muscle recovery and your overall health, which of course is key for better performance.
So look, we've seen there's some pretty solid scientific evidence for a lot of these claims. But, and this is the really crucial part, how does the actual supplement we started with stack up against all that research? More specifically, what about the dosage?
Okay, this chart lays it out pretty clearly. If you look at the clinical trials for anxiety, the dose that they found to be effective was usually somewhere between 240 and 600 milligrams a day. Now, look over at the Flabia product. The user guide says to take 2 500 milligram capsules, which is a total of 1,000 milligrams a day.
So the takeaway here is pretty straightforward. The daily dose recommended by this particular product is actually higher than the range that was most commonly found to be effective for anxiety in the clinical trials we have.
So what does this all mean? Ashwagandha really sits at this fascinating crossroads between ancient wisdom and modern validated science. The evidence definitely suggests there are real measurable benefits here. But as we just saw, it's not always a straight line from the scientific research to the product on the shelf. So the question is, what does the evidence tell you? Is it ancient wisdom? Is it validated science? Or is it maybe a little bit of both?